So, you bought yourself a new camera, a 360 camera, so you can capture your motorcycle rides from all different angles with the press of one button. But how do you actually get these 360 motorcycle videos to look good? First, we have to take a look at the camera itself and how this captures videos. This is the Insta360 X4. The X4 has two lenses which both captures a 180-degree field of view, which is later stitched together by Insta360's own software using a smartphone or a computer. It also records videos in 8K resolution. Yeah, 8K, that's a lot of pixels. However, these pixels are spread around that 360-degree sphere which is recorded, and most of the time you'll end up using a small part of that circle only, so you're not really gonna get that 8K look when you export your videos. But does it really matter? You see, a 360 camera is not a normal camera. It can still be used as a normal camera though, but if you ask me, it's better to use it for what it was meant to be used for, recording 360 videos. So when the doorbell rings, you rush to the door and you're greeted with the most versatile camera on the planet. You open a box, you charge the battery, and you find the best micro SD card you have. And then you wait. Now it's finally time, the battery is fully charged, you're ready to go, and you're ready for your first immersive 360 motorcycle experience. So you head out to the garage, mount the camera in a random position with the Insta360 motorcycle clamp you just purchased, and press record. Now, as you ride, you're thinking to yourself,
"This is amazing. I can't wait to see what I've captured."
But as soon as you get back to check the footage, you realize that this didn't look nearly as good as what you've seen from other people on the internet, and you're thinking,
"What did I do wrong? This looks awful."
So let's rewind. It all started when you received the camera. The first thing you did was to charge the battery and insert the SD card, which is correct. But even though this is a 360 camera that records everything, there's still a few elements that plays a huge part in how your footage will look at the end. So let's go back to when the camera was fully charged. Out of the box, the X4 is ready to go, but there's one thing you forgot to change. The bitrate.
What on earth is bitrate and why does this matter?
Well, the bitrate is what holds the data and allows the pictures to look better. So 8K will include more data than 4K, for example, and in order to make the 8K videos look even better, you will also need to change the bitrate to high, which will allow the 8K video to capture and hold more data than if the bitrate was set to standard.
Okay. So now that I have the bitrate set to high, I'm all done, right?
Well, almost. You see, to fully benefit from the 200 megabits that the X4 is capable of, you also need to make sure that the format is set to H.265. But this should be the default format when you receive the camera, but it doesn't hurt to give it a second glance.
Thanks. Is there anything else I need to know?
Well, in theory, the camera is good to go, but there's another question you have to ask yourself. When and where will you be riding? So regardless of when and where you want to take your next ride, I assume you want your footage to look consistent whether you decide to color grade the video or not. And this is where we have white balance. And a proper good looking video has the same color temperature from start to finish, and the only way to obtain this is to lock the white balance. A typical white balance for daylight, for example, whether it's cloudy or not, is 5500 Kelvin, or somewhere between 5000 and 5500. And the closer towards zero you are, the colder it will look, so more blue. And the higher the number is, the warmer it will look, so more yellow reddish. And having the white balance set to 5000 or 5500, for example, you'll end up with a perfectly balanced temperature which looks good in all scenarios except for low lights, where you might want to go down to 3000 or 4000 Kelvin.
Okay, the white balance is set to 5500 and the format is H.265. Is there anything else I need to know?
As long as the sharpness is set to medium if you want to publish a video straight to social media, you're all set. But if you want to add some corrections in post by tweaking the colors, for example, I would suggest setting the sharpness to low and add the sharpness in post manually. But other than that, you're ready to capture the world in 360. Oh, one more thing though, a pro tip is to set the exposure value to -0.3 as well, which will reduce the chance of having blown out highlights, which is typically seen in the sky and clouds. But this also depends on what you prefer. Let me explain. Having this set to 0 will give you a balanced image, but the clouds will most likely be blown out. And if you lower this to -0.3 or -0.7, the sky will be perfect, but you might be too dark. But -0.3 gives you the best overall exposure balance. But if you want to focus more on you as a rider and you couldn't care less about the blown out highlights because you are the person of interest, then I would suggest going with +0.3 instead.
Thanks, that's really helpful. But I'm looking at my footage now. Why is my helmet so weird?
Let's head out and I'll show you. So the reason your helmet is so weird is because the camera was mounted with the stitch line towards you and not out to the sides. And I can also see that your placement is a little bit off. Maybe it's a little bit too low. Let me explain. Between the two lenses, we have what's called the stitch line. This is where the camera and the software is stitching the shots together. So we have 180-degree field of view from one side and the same from the other side. But in order to get that 360 video with endless framing options, the camera needs to stitch these two shots together. And sometimes the stitch line becomes visible and you'll see distortion in your image. So the best way to fix this is to angle the camera according to what you want to film. And you said your purpose was motovlogging. I would actually suggest mounting the camera so you have one lens facing you and the other lens facing ahead of you. This way you'll end up with the stitch line out to each side and the result will be a much better image. So now that you compare the clips, you'll see a huge difference, not only in quality, but you also get a much better 360 experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can clearly see the differences and my head is no longer distorted.
And a pro tip is to always check the framing with the Insta360 mobile app when you first mount the camera on your bike. This helps you to see how the camera is mounted and whether this is mounted too high, too low, and if you need to place it further away or closer. And once you have something that looks good, you can press record on the mobile app and sit upwards on the bike or even lean forward, whatever floats your boat. And now you can just check the video you recorded and see how it will look when you're out riding. Another thing to consider is also how far away you place the camera, because you don't want to end up zooming in when you edit your videos later. The reason is that these 360 cameras are meant to zoom out and not in. So the more you zoom in, the worse image you'll get. Just a tip.
Thanks. But all my shots look the same. Is there anything I can do to make it look cooler?
Have you tried some creative shots?
What do you mean?
I mean, the X4 is such a versatile camera and you can mount this in all different places without thinking about how you mount it, if you know what I mean, because it records everything. So you can use a selfie stick, for example, with a motorcycle clamp you just bought, and you can mount the camera out to the side, further away from you and further in front of you, or you can also make that GTA 5 style look by mounting the selfie stick backwards. There's literally no limits to what you can capture with the 360 camera. So just mount the camera in a few spots with and without the selfie stick, head out and just see what you get.
They wouldn't let me. Man's gal wanna come undress me. Swing with the right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. They wouldn't let me. Man's gal wanna come undress me. Swing with the right, but I might go lefty. I made plus with it, so don't test me. Nah, you don't impress me.
But now that I look at the footage, it still looks bad. I mean, it looks alright. I don't have the distortion on my helmet, but the footage looks just as grainy and bad as before. Why?
So the reason you're seeing this, whether this is on the desktop app or the mobile app, is because Insta360 is using a low resolution preview. But when you export the video, it will look much better. So the advantage with this low res preview is that anyone can shoot and edit 360 videos, almost regardless of how old or new your computer is, which is actually a big deal.
Okay, so I exported the clip now. It looks much better, but the image is still bad. What did I do wrong?
Well, you probably exported the video with H.264 and the standard bitrate, which is set by default, but if you change it over to H.265, which is the same format you recorded the video with, you also see that we have an option called Dolby Vision, right?
Yeah, I see that. What does it mean?
this is HDR, or high dynamic range. And this will add that extra boost in quality by reducing some grain, and it will also make the footage look more dynamic with brighter skies, darker shadows, and more contrast. Now, since the X4 has a max bitrate of 200, it's also important to change the bitrate to 200 to get the most data possible. And if you ever want to export the same video but you want to use the mobile app, for example, you also have the same Dolby Vision or HDR option, but you will need to apply this before you hit the export button. And you can find this on the feature list, which is above your timeline, by swiping to the left. And when you enable this, your video will automatically be exported in HDR. So that's how I improve my motorcycle videos. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. And until next time, take care, ride safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.